If you conducted a survey where you asked every straight man in the United States his favorite anime or manga, I can basically guarantee you that Dragon Ball would be the series with the most votes. It just speaks to them. While the franchise certainly has its queer and female fans, it is, at its heart, a franchise for straight, cisgender men and boys. And the other sides of the fanbase are relatively minuscule, even compared to other popular shonen. Honestly, this makes sense. After all, the second half of the series is basically just one long masculine power fantasy. And unfortunately for anyone who isn't a cishet man, Toriyama seems to construct his idea of masculinity by excluding or mocking anything that he perceives as queer. As Zachary Michael Lewis Dean writes in their article for The Routledge Companion to Gender and Sexuality in Comic Book Studies, LGBTQ characters in general, either explicitly or implicitly, are sparse, and the ones that do exist all operate as either antagonists or villains. The few depictions that can be found in Dragon Ball's 1984-95 run are often derogatory popular culture stereotypes and caricatures that reinforce outdated and regressive messages of the LGBTQ. One of the only gay characters in the entire series is General Blue, who appears during the Red Ribbon Army arc, and his whole existence seems to just be an excuse for Toriyama to get off a bunch of homophobic jokes. Despite being strong in combat, he's a bit of an effeminate wimp. When he gets punched, he cries about the damage done to his beautiful face. When he has to follow Bulma and Krillin underwater, he complains about having to get wet and worries that the salt in the water will be bad for his skin. When he finally confronts the two, Bulma attempts to seduce him, and he reacts with genuine disgust. The idea that gay men are grossed out by women is one of the oldest and dumbest homophobic stereotypes. In the English translation, Bulma responds by calling him gay, but it is worth keeping in mind that the actual Japanese word used in this scene is this, which I won't be saying because it is a particularly aggressive term that would be more accurately translated as something like the F-slur in English. That explains why Blue reacts with such hostility to the accusation. She isn't just saying he's a homosexual, she's calling him a slur. After Blue beats the shit out of Krillin for a while, Bulma decides to try flirting again, and when it fails, she doubles down on the insult. Attempting to trick Blue, Bulma suggests that she might secretly be a man, and in reply gets called a, quote, freak of nature. I'm not sure if that's more of an insult to trans people or intersex people, but I know it only adds to the queerphobic bigotry of the situation. This scene ends when Blue gets so scared of a mouse that Goku is able to take advantage of the distraction and punch his lights out. You know, because gay guys are all easily scared crybabies or something. Blue appears a few more times after this, but the results aren't any better. As usual, Toei made this whole thing way worse in the anime adaptation. In episode 56, General Blue is just straight up depicted as a pedophile. In an interaction with the cameo character Obacha-man, an android who looks like a 5-year-old boy, he calls him his type and tries to kiss him. Hopefully I don't need to explain why depicting gay men as sexual predators on the hunt for children is fucking insanely backwards and bigoted. We can't totally blame Toriyama for that one, as it is a filler scene in the anime, but it certainly isn't winning the franchise any gay fans. An interesting thing I want to note here is that the Funimation dub does try to fix this scene by making it so that Blue instead mistakes Obacha-man for a long-lost younger brother. He still very clearly tries to kiss him though, so maybe it's actually worse. Anyways, aside from General Blue, there's really only one other gay character in the manga. Introduced in the second to last chapter, one of the fighters in the final tournament is Otokosuki, whose name literally means man love. His appearance is clearly based on Glenn Hughes, the biker from the Village People. Otokosuki doesn't get nearly as much page space as Blue. In fact, he's only in like 3 panels. But one of those 3 panels is him sexually harassing Trunks, so it really doesn't seem like Toriyama had a change of heart at any point during the serialization of Dragon Ball. If anything, this is worse, because at least Blue wasn't harassing people in the manga. They saved that for the anime. Now, it might be tempting to just say this is an example of an artist being a product of their time. I'm sure many Dragon Ball fans would do just that. They'd admit that the series has a bad track record with queer characters, but they would insist that this is only a holdover from a time where people just didn't know any better. But I don't think that argument holds much weight in this case. Firstly, the idea that no one knew a bigoted practice or culture was bad is always false in every case, because at least some of the people who were victims of that bigotry knew that it was wrong. That whole argument drives me crazy. People will say slavery in the United States happened because people back then just accepted it. It was normal. Really? Did the slaves just accept it? Did the people being kidnapped into slavery think it was normal? It's a way of erasing the voices of the oppressed, which is itself a form of bigotry. Queer people in Japan in the 1980s knew they were not free to be who they wanted to be. They knew their struggle, and I'm sure they would have gladly told Toriyama about it if he had cared to listen. Secondly, this argument doesn't work because there were already plenty of manga with sympathetic depictions of queer people published before Toriyama began work on Dragon Ball. I mean, the main character of Hisashi Eguchi's Stop Hibari-kun is a trans woman, and that series ran in Weekly Shonen Jump from 1981 to 1983, with its final chapter being published almost exactly 1 year before Dragon Ball debuted in the same magazine. And it's not like Toriyama was unaware of this. Hibari-kun was running at the same time as Dr. Slump, and Eguchi and Toriyama were directly in competition for the #1 spot in the magazine. He was fully aware that some of his contemporaries were exploring queer identities and themes in their work, and he still chose to depict gay people as villains and jokes. Maybe this helps to explain why Dragon Ball does not seem to translate to queer audiences in the same way that other, essentially straight, series do. Not only is it targeted towards cisgender, heterosexual men, but the queer people that do appear in the series are essentially punching bags for their homophobic author. No wonder queer people wouldn't be into that. And yet, here I am. Yeah, so everything I just said is completely true, but also, I am actually queer and also a Dragon Ball fan. And I'm not alone in this. Sure, there are homophobic jokes in the series, but we're talking about like 5 chapters out of 519. It sucks, but it's incredibly easy to just ignore. The bigotry is all surface level. It's not important to the plot, or even really to the themes. And aside from Bulma, no other character in the series is really depicted as openly homophobic. There are scenes where gay characters play out offensive stereotypes, but there aren't scenes where Goku commits hate crimes, and that is an important distinction to make when it comes to how enjoyable the series can be. There is a difference between a work of art that features some bigotry and a work of art that is fundamentally bigoted. Breakfast at Tiffany's is a movie about love and loneliness in the big city, which happens to feature a ridiculously offensive racist caricature. The Birth of a Nation is a movie specifically designed as propaganda for the KKK. In my mind, it's a lot easier to find the good in the former than it is in the latter. In fact, I think every reasonable person does this all the time. We don't simply throw out every classic novel that contains offensive material, and we don't dismiss every classic rap album that has a homophobic or sexist bar on it. We consume things critically. We recognize the problems, accept the limitations, and continue to enjoy it otherwise. That's what I do with Dragon Ball. That's what thousands upon thousands of queer people do with Dragon Ball. We see the issue, we recognize it, we are uncomfortable with it, and then we move on to the parts of the series that are actually good and enjoyable. We are not here for Otoko Suki. We are here to watch Mr. Satan smoke a fat blunt with Majin Buu and their dog. And hey, if we want to write a little Goku x Vegeta fanfic, who's gonna stop us?
But there is one thing a Saiyan always keeps, his pride!